Let's talk about one more topic that's an exciting topic that we all enjoy, and that's the MLB off-season. So we won't spend too much time here. This is something we've all experienced, even Greg training during the COVID year. You were training right alongside with the MLB guys that we trained. You know what I mean? So that's a question we get, like the differences between MLB guys and the high school guys. But I don't want to talk about necessarily the intricacies of training. Nice word.
Right.
But
man,
I just want to talk about that, like what it kind of looks like. We don't have to compare it to the NFL offseason. We can, but let's just talk about what the MLB offseason looks like from a structure, from like how long they're here, what we're trying to accomplish, all that fun stuff, right? So real quick, just to catch all our thousands and millions of subscribers and listeners up, the MLB offseason usually gets rolling about middle October to like late November. Anywhere between 12 and 16 weeks, we'll have these guys here, or whether they're in person, remote, whatever it may be. We have a handful of each, and so depending on what level they're at. So if they're in a lower level, like in the minor league level, on like affiliate, like a single A or something,
Right.
they'll usually start earlier. They start like a September sometimes, late September. But most of the time, things get rolling mid to late October / early November, right? So we have all of November, all of December, all of January, and then like 2 to 3 weeks of February, and then usually they're all off. Minor league guys usually report like beginning of March. They're here a little bit longer unless they're getting called up as like a catcher pitcher. But most guys middle to late February unless the team wants them up early because they're rehabbing or something. So we tend to structure it in 3 to 4 phases. And again, this is broad. It's very individualized when we talk to the player. We kind of make their program specific, but we try to have like a general recovery type phase. Like we're preparing them for the off season. So we're not just kind of diving right into what they were doing. They need a break, like a neurological break from being like on for 162 games.
Especially if they're playing deeper into the playoffs.
162 plus, right? If you go to the
playoffs. Yeah. And if you include spring training, or if you include like a guy who's like on the bubble trying to make the roster, he's been balls to the wall since spring training, right?
They're wiped.
The guys who are, established, big contracts, they can take it a little easier in spring training, but it's still a long season.
Absolutely.
There's no way around it. So we like to kind of let them recover while still putting some stress on the tissue, right? So we try to have like some stress on the tissue, get them back ready to work out for the first few weeks or so. The next phase is going to be more of like a general strength phase with some movement, some power here and there. So now we're kind of working some more strength ranges, and we're getting some power going on involved, but it's more strength focused. Again, depending on the athlete, will depend on like what direction we go, but it's going to be a little more strength focused.
Yeah, the focus.
After that, we'll transition to like a middle ground of like strength and power. And again, with all this stuff, we're starting to do more stuff in the field, do more sprinting, running for our position guys. Pitchers are starting to do some med ball type work. In this phase, or phase 3-ish, if you will, then our last phase is going to be a little bit more of just like power, trying to like work in the same energy system that they're going to be working in when they're on the field.
Spring training, yeah.
And we always want to touch that, like that we'll call it like a phosphagen energy system. That's just like your quick twitch energy system. We always want to touch that in our programming, regardless. Right. Maybe the first phase, stay away from it for a little bit, let them recover, but we usually want to touch that in just because we want them to be really good at it. That's something that, if you don't touch that energy system within 5 to 7 days, you start to lose it. It's not like training for like an aerobic goal where like you can train and not do aerobic fitness for 20 or 30 days and still have the effect of training. If you are throwing hard, or if you're sprinting, if you're a power athlete and you don't train the energy system for 5 to 7 days, you start to lose it a little bit. So we always want to touch on that, right? So the big picture of things, first phase, we're trying to recover, get them back into movement, have their neurological system be fresh. Second phase, we're starting to get into some strength movements and moving around more. Third phase is a mixture of power and strength and just movement in general. Fourth phase is going to be pretty heavy on the power side. And then we send them off to spring training. A lot of guys we still kind of program during the season. That's a different topic, but that's what the off-season looks like for us.
In general sense, like you said, I think it's, like I said, we didn't want to get into the differences between that and college or high school, but you have a set time generally where they're going to come in and when they're going to leave. So though everything is individualized for the player, and, if you add in injuries or if they're coming off of surgery, or like one thing you can talk to is like how to manage them when they're traveling. If you have somebody traveling or they have wherever they're going to where they got to go see the team or team doctor or whatever, managing that as well. But having that set time when they're coming in, when they're leaving out. You know when spring training is going to start, and you can have a structure in there that you probably want to kind of stick to as far as focus versus college or high school where it's not as we got a set amount of time so we can actually do the.
It's almost like year round. Those kids are seeing.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it round the head.
Yeah.
Because this would be your what? 10th. So
10th or 11th. I think 10th off-season.
Steve, whenever you were going over the phases, I heard you talk about, getting them back ready to sort of work out and like a strength phase, power phase, all that. Is there like any cardio involved?
It depends on the athlete. It just depends.
When would it be implemented? Like right before they go off the camp?
Usually the beginning. Like if someone comes in and they're a little heavier than we want them to be, or like their body composition, maybe has gotten higher than what it has been in the past or something. Then
I've been there.
Oh yeah, I didn't want to allude to that, but if you're gonna go ahead and say it, yeah. But but generally that first phase, we want to try to get as much of the fat off as possible, so we can stay away from like working in like a long, enduring energy system. Right, we want to be a kind of that fast, quick twitch type energy system. So like traditionally, try to get as much fat off as possible at the beginning. And then ideally it's all off by the time we start doing more power stuff. So like the energy systems aren't like pulling each other, right? So we can just stay in a power producing energy system. And you've had some experience like training with baseball, at least the COVID year, like that off season blended together. Like usually the NFL off season doesn't start till after the Super Bowl when guys are leaving, but during the COVID year they came back. And so you were working out. We worked out with several guys. We were in Florida together. Mm-hmm. You were seeing them.
I was killing them in the weight room.
Yeah,
they couldn't touch me.
Yeah, I can argue there.
And then how many days?
Yeah, that's a good question. So
usually
anywhere between 3 and 4. So if it's 4 days a week, we'll have like an upper lower split, and we'll have speed and movement training in there, a med ball training, change of direction training is implemented in those days as well. If it's a 3-day split, we either go 3 full body days or have an upper day, lower day, and then a full body day mixed together or combined. Again, and med ball work and change of direction and speed work mixed in depending on what the athlete really needs. And then they'll have their own mobility recovery. We'll have PTs that we work with that we send guys to get, whether it's they're rehabbing or whether they are just trying to have like maintenance kind of stuff, like what you had in Florida was more maintenance. There was some rehab going on, but it was like maintenance, right? So like similar to that. And then if they have in a fat loss phase, they might be doing cardio 5 or 6 days a week. It really just depends on the individual, but 3 to 4 days a week as far as in the weight room. And then once they start throwing, we'll start on the weight room side. Like you have to take volume out somewhere. So if you add more throwing in and you add more weight in, then you're going to run out of room essentially.
You got to adjust.
So if we put in more throwing, then we take out some more stuff from the weight room side of things just to make sure that they're able to do what they need to do, and that's throw.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we build the basic structure of things. A lot different than the NFL offseason, right? So
I was going to ask, maybe for people out there who are training and maybe they've gone through them first 3 phases, right? Yeah. And, like, do you ever – and I guess y'all would know more than me – how do you handle an athlete, like, when you've pretty much got them ready, they've, hit all of our marks that we wanted them to hit, and you're about to send them off? Like, can those last couple weeks be kind of weird? Like, don't want to wear them out, want to send them to camp fresh? Yeah. Or because I know for football personally, we'll taper down that last week before we leave.
Absolutely.
Just because you want us fresh and all that going into our fall camp or whatever.
So you're talking about for the baseball athletes.
Yeah, like how would you handle? Are you tapering down? Are you still ramping up? Like, are you throwing more? What's?
It's a good question. We're definitely we'll have what we implement like a spring training phase, if you will. And so now like let's say a workout takes an hour from doing everything right. Now it might take 30 minutes or something.
Gotcha.
Right? So we're definitely trying to maintain and still make progress, but not at the expense of like them being sore in their actual skill, whether it's like throwing or hitting.
And that would be the last couple of weeks of training?
Yeah, the last maybe 2 weeks or so. Some guys, they may go balls to the wall until spring training, and then like if we're programming them at spring training, that's when we start the kind of spring training phase, if you will. But that
would be for like more established players,
guys who
can kind of rev up
to kind of like take that time. But most of the time we have a spring training phase where we're still touching on power, we're still getting speed in, we're still moving around, but the stress of like a middle of phase 2 or the beginning of phase 3 where it's like some heavy movements, that's kind of that's not in the program as much. We want them to be like as fresh as possible, right? And still work out and maintain and still push it in the season, but do it at a point where like it's assisting and facilitating in your recovery and, you know, helping with your actual performance. If it's just helping in performance but taking away from recovery, then that's not a good in-season training strategy. That makes sense. But yeah, back to the question, we do have a spring training phase. We are trying to taper, kind of like what we did with unit football.
Would it be like you know, like steps to it, like maybe 2 weeks out you cut, like maybe you're just doing 75% of the work, and then like 1 week out we're doing 50. We'll cut everything. Is that sort of how it goes?
Yeah. Yeah, it could definitely be something like that.
Yeah, I like to think of it as just keeping you primed.
Yeah, like touching the systems is.
You should definitely leave feeling like
your best self.
That and you know, I could do a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Like
and does that like aid in the, because like we said, it's a 162 plus season.
Yeah.
Is that like aiding anything like in the CNS? Like, are we, you know, giving that? Is that part of
less stress, potentially less stress in the body, where it's now the body has more stress to give to the season. Essentially, you know what I mean? Like, we'll have guys get like super strong in the off season at times where it's like we got to cut them off and wait. Like, listen, like we only got so many bullets. Like, you're strong as you need to be. Like, it feels fun and good to do in January and February, but like when August rolls around, you're gonna be like, damn, I wish I, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like the strength stuff, to your point, should be taken kind of like a backseat to the actual skill performance you're gonna need at that point. Because above all else, you're an MLB baseball player, not a power lifter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's a good question. I think next.
I had a lot of them.
You have some more?
I know I had a lot.
Oh, yeah. You deliver those questions extravagantly. But I think a fun topic we'll do next time is compare the MLB and NFL offseason. That would be something fun to talk about. But we're going to make everyone wait. I know they're sitting on the edge of the seat for that podcast. And hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you all next time.
Peace.